demon. The mud demon is a predatory creature found on the planet known as Not Furia. They were introduced early on in the film Riddick. These creatures are amphibious in nature, and they make their home on this scorched planet, usually choosing to stay close to water or under the water. They are venomous, and the only time that you end up seeing them is right when they're about to attack you and make their strike. They confuse their prey by keeping the prey's eyes on their tail, and then they leap out of the water to grab them like a crocodile and pull them back in, or let the venom do its job. Like scorpions, these creatures use their tails as a weapon, but the venom comes from their teeth when they deliver the ultimate bite. Even though this planet is dry and hot, the creatures still manage to survive here, and they survive by keeping to the shadows or in caves where water pools. When it's so dry out, the water is usually mostly mud, which is where they get their name from, mud demons. The planet Not Furia goes through seasons. The dry season, which is mostly what we see, and then the monsoon season, when it's all rainy. And when it's like this, the creatures are able to come out from being secluded in their pools and roam the planet, since they have their full access to water. Only when it is raining and when it's monsoon season is when you'll actually see the creatures above ground the most. That's also when they're the most deadly. Now they're free to roam wherever they want, and they will stop at nothing to get to what they want to eat. There is so little food on this planet that the creatures turn to cannibalism just to survive. And of course, whenever they see anything that's prey, they will fight each other to the death to get to it. That's because it's so hard to survive on this planet that when food actually comes by, they have to take an opportunity to catch it, even if it kills them. These creatures resemble the bioraptors from Pitch Black, another movie in the Riddick series, the first one, in that they're bipedal, have very sharp teeth, and lack eyes. Both these species of aliens also are required to lie dormant for a section of time on a planet that's too hostile for them to be out all the time. In Pitch Black, the bioraptors were not able to be out most of the time because the planet was always scorching hot, and the only time they could come out is when there was an eclipse, when there was total darkness. For the mud demons, they required, well, total wetness. These holes that you see in the creature's tail are actually breathing holes. I guess you can call them nostrils. This allows the creatures to stay submerged. It also functions as an adaptation so that the prey could think that this was the head of a creature, something less suspecting. The two holes in the top makes it look like eyes, and of course, being able to expel air makes it look like the creature's breathing. So the poor unsuspecting prey would never expect a larger creature to jump from out of the mud and grab them, not to mention getting bit with a mouthful of venom. Not only is the bite of the mud demon venomous, but it also has a paralyzing agent. All the mud demon needs to do is jump out of the water and get a good bite on you, and then you'll become paralyzed. Like snakes, the younger mud demons are the most dangerous. They're the ones that don't know how to temper their venom and will release a strong concoction of it, making them more dangerous than the much larger ones. From what we've seen, the males seem larger and have red blotches on them, while the females are more solid in color. We don't get to observe them or their social standing a lot outside of them attacking the main character, but since this was a female that attacked Riddick first, it's safe to assume that maybe she and the male were in the same pool together, living harmoniously. Maybe that was his main girlfriend. And the younger ones we see the little pup playing with in the pool nearby are probably their offspring. They are a cannibalistic species and don't seem to be especially intelligent. When the male's guts were spilled out, he didn't even care that they came out of him or didn't even realize they came out of his own body. And without any hesitation, smelled hot, steaming meat and immediately began to chew, which is freaking disgusting. So based on this behavior, we can assume that the mud demons won't exactly cannibalize each other just willy-nilly, but will choose the weakest of the species or ones that are already injured or smaller. This side of their cannibalism ensures that the strongest literally survive. It's also safe to assume that these creatures can go a while without eating, what with being on a planet that is usually desolate and barren. These animals are amphibious in nature, and since the closest, most common amphibian that we know of on our planet is a frog, and monster designers usually base creatures on real-life creatures that we have on Earth, it's possible that they modeled how long these creatures can go without eating after a frog. It is said that adult frogs can survive for extended periods of up to 3 to 4 weeks. Also, the lower the temperature, the lower their metabolism, which allows them to go possibly even longer without food. Since these mud demons are confined to the pools of this planet whenever there is a dry season or not a lot of water, it is possible that they lower their metabolism greatly so in order to protect themselves from starving. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense that they just be hungry and starving all the time and feeding on all their neighbors. Then there wouldn't be anyone left to breed with. It is said that a well-nourished tree frog can easily remain in hibernation for up to 6 months without becoming lean or thin. And hibernation doesn't necessarily mean that they're sleeping. Hibernation means that they're in a state of suspension or very little activity and sitting still. Kind of like a state of being catatonic. And we know this is the case with the creatures because the mud is usually very still. You don't even know that anything is lying in these pools of dirty water until you get close. These creatures are probably hardwired to realize when something is close by as an opportunity for them to get food. But otherwise, they're sitting still in their ponds, probably half asleep, or just out of it, utilizing too much energy to uselessly move around or play with each other or whatever it is they do for fun would expend too much energy. And since they can't replenish all that energy quickly or on a daily basis, what with this planet being all barren, they have adapted to stay in a state of inactivity or hibernation. They are also very hardy creatures that don't seem to feel pain in a lot of the ways that most creatures that we know do. Or maybe when they're in the state of agitation or desperation trying to get food, their inhibitions are lowered. It's possible that they've adapted to ignore pain because they don't have the luxury of getting food whenever they'd like. So if their food stabs them or fights back, their threshold for pain is higher so that they can do everything they can to acquire their food, even to the point of their guts being spilled from out of their bodies. Even to this point, the creature doesn't even realize that his guts have fallen outside of his body until he starts to eat them, and even still, he doesn't realize his guts have fallen out of his frickin' body. That's gross. The mud demons don't seem to be particularly agile or very fast. Sure, they have the ability to keep themselves steady when going up wet areas like wet rocks, but since they can rely on their venom, all they need to do is get close enough and be stealthy enough to get to their prey or even swarm their prey just to take a bite and then wait for the prey to be paralyzed and then feed. They didn't need to evolve to be very fast because they spend most of their time in water and they have venom. Usually animals that have venom at their disposal don't make a show out of chasing down their prey unless threatened. They're what can be classified as ambush predators. And even though they seem to be solitary, they can live in communities, but tend to fend for themselves or see an opportunity on their own and feed. Notice how when the female came out of the water to bite Riddick, the male didn't follow shortly after. They only consider themselves. And even in the end part of the movie, the creatures weren't exactly working together. They were fighting each other trying to get to Riddick. They only care about themselves and just so happen to be aiming at the same target, similar to that scene with the snakes on that island. All of the above makes the mud demons quite dangerous. Somehow the creatures also don't need to see, which means that they can either sense heat or motion or vibrations. I would think since they spend most of their time near the earth or in muddy pools, that they can either hear or smell very well. Maybe it's a combination of feeling or sensing vibrations, but I think their strongest ability is hearing. This makes them specifically hard to hide from, especially if you're breathing hard after having run away from them. Anyways, those were the mud demons. If you want to see them in all their glory, be sure to watch the movie Riddick. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.